Reveille here and
Walley.
are reviewing season 1, episode 1, One Armed Bandits of the Dukes of Hazzard. I've done this one before, but I got a new partner, and we're just going to be critiquing it. Well, it's the first time you watched it, wasn't it?
Not the first time, but it's been. I don't remember any of them because I was 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old when they came out.
So this will be all fresh and new to him. I've been more of a fanatic. I've watched them, and I know a little bit more about them. So what do you think of episode 1?
It was way different than what I remember them.
How did you remember it, and what was different?
I remember them being Duke boys being more good guys, and I didn't remember the Roscoe and all them looking at it through a child's eyes. They weren't that bad, but they're sitting there setting up to be actually pretty bad.
This was an edgy show, and I think it was in line with like Smokey and the Bandit. And I think they wanted to be more serious, making fun of the South than what people realized.
This was actually based on a movie previously, a couple of years before that, Moonshiners.
Yeah, and one day we're going to watch that movie and review it as well. I've got a lot of plans for this podcast. Again, I'm going to be touring some of the places like Cooters and Luray, and hopefully one day in Pigeon Forge. And there's a Boar's Nest Museum in North Carolina that if anybody's around that area or coming through, it's worth checking out. I can't think of the name right off of the location, but if you search it, you'll see it. Boar's Nest Museum. But yeah, there's a lot that I got planned for this podcast. I'm hoping to, as before, I'm putting out the invitation. If anybody's done a General Lee restoration, sees this and wants to get on and be questioned about it, I would love to interview y'all. But at least I grew up. I love the show. I collect a lot of Dukes of Hazzard stuff. Wally, you weren't so much. This wasn't one of your like top shows, was it, as a kid? Or
Actually, as a kid, the ones I remember the Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider, and then of course cartoons.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I will be doing the cartoon Dukes of Hazzard, and then the 2 reunion movies when we get to them. But we're going to be going in line season 1, and then with season 2, and so forth and so on.
You don't want to talk about that movie with Jessica Simpson in it?
And well, we might do that one after we get done with all of the others because, personally, my feelings on that. I hated it. They made Coy and Vance look good to me, and I didn't think that would ever happen in my lifetime. But what did you think overall of this first episode, as far as introducing the cast, getting you familiar with what the show is going to be? To me, I felt like they were lost, trying to find their way.
Yeah, they were. The way I remember them, the characters, they just didn't seem like themselves yet. They were just introducing themselves and I guess trying to find their footing. Basically, what came across to me.
And you were talking about some of the things you saw of the show. I pointed them out on the podcast before. What was some of the glitch in the matrix is what I called it, or weird things of maybe cross TV shows and possibly a twin general? Did you catch any of that stuff?
Yeah, they had the Starsky and Hutch car in this one, and then I can't swear to it, but I'm pretty sure that when they were driving through the town, there was another General Lee sitting off to the side somewhere.
You were exactly right. Whenever that last, I think, police chase, it comes across.
And I think it was in the very beginning of it.
No, it was later. You'll see it as we got the TV show on now. You'll see it a little bit later. But the Starsky and Hutch, and then what was we noticed the policeman in the
Yeah,
sheriff car.
if you look, it looks like a policeman in the very opening scene where they're generally chasing the cop car. Looks like there's a policeman in it, and then it switches to Cooter. And I think it did it a couple of times.
Yeah. And as we go on, you'll notice 1980s was not continuity was not a big thing. It was more entertainment. I don't think they were really thinking anybody would go back and dissect this show as bad as they have. So basically, that's what's going to be with the podcast too. Kind of blank out in your mind about the other season I did. Hopefully, this one will be just as good and fun. I really appreciate having Wally here to help me and adding his part to the podcast. So, growing up, did you have any of the toys? Did you do any of the?
I had the Matchbox, Matchbox car, General Lee, and I think I had the uh, Boss Hogs car, and I know I had a bunch of the trading cards, but where they're at now, I couldn't tell you.
Oh man, those things were everywhere, and anything Dukes of Hazzard is trying to find it is if you do, it's like hundreds of dollars. I don't know why the show has a lot of critique to it and everything, but for some reason, if you go and look at stuff from your childhood in the 80s, the Duke stuff is going higher than most of the other stuff. Not really sure why.
There's Jesse with the brown wig.
But yeah, he's just now talking about the scene where Jesse was in the car looking like Daisy in episode 1. I did notice that there was a police force on the very first episode. Later on, it just becomes Enos and Roscoe, and then later Cletus shows up. But in this first episode, it looked like a real police station. But how do you think this would rank as far as if it came out tomorrow in the world we are now?
They wouldn't get away with it, I don't think. All the stuff they did in this, they jailbreak Daisy, and then they don't go get her and put her back in jail afterwards, and all the chasing, Daisy steals the cop car.
I kind of agree with you, and I don't know. I mean, through my child's reactions and other people that I know, the kids just don't like it like we did. But I'm seeing a lot of like the clips in this right here was used almost throughout the entire series with Luke putting the gun back in the holster of Enos. A lot of the scenes that they done in this right here episode, they used throughout, if I remember correctly, as it comes on. Of course, we know Waylon Jennings did the song.
Was he the guy that did the voice?
He sure was. Yep. Waylon did that.
Yeah, he passed away in, was it 2002?
Somewhere around there. I know his son, I think it's Scooter Jennings, and it seems to me like there's another one that Cooter's had a few times at his place. But Waylon, yeah, he was the balladeer, and in the TV shows, I don't think he was in the reunion episodes though. But we'll get to that later on. Right now, it's just like I said, it's been season 1. I think we touched on most of the stuff. Anything you liked or disliked in this first one? Was there anything? Well, I'm going to get the elephant out of the room right now. Did anything offend you, or did you feel like would be offensive outside of anything on a car or anything like that?
No.
Script wise.
No, I grew up with this, and I see a rebel flag, and it's reminds me of history. Reminds me of things we need to make sure we don't do again. Now, grant there are some people out there that look at that flag and it reminds them of bad times, but it's to me it reminds us of history that we need not repeat.
And I think it's different. To me, it's different than a flag. This is a car. It's a decal on a car. It's not a flag per se. And if it would be offensive to anybody, it should be the South because obviously this show was designed from Hollywood from day one to poke fun and make fun of the South. That the cousins are dating each other and that they're always drunk and doing wild things and running from the law. But what they didn't realize was people from the South have a sense of humor. That it took off in the South better than anywhere else. And I think that might have bothered some people. But I just think it was a fun show. I liked how they introduced the characters. Um, the one thing that stood out to me, I didn't realize it until I watched it with Walley a few minutes ago, was that actually Ben Jones was the third character introduced before anybody else in this whole the whole episode. Whenever he stole the police car, they chose to have him introduced that way. That was kind of cool. He's keeping the memory of the Dukes of Hazzard alive the best he can with all his museums and everything. And anyways, I think that's about it. You have anything to add, Wally?
Now here's this chasing through town.
Yeah, this is where you'll see the General Lee. Right there.
Right there, yep.
Yep. Uh-huh. And like I said, that's a glitch in the Matrix, people. I will be doing an Unsolved Dukes of Hazzard some point or another. And also, we'll be doing, after each episode, I will be doing a Hazzard County newscast. The way that it would have probably been back in 79 if this was done. And remember, this is 79. There's a lot of cheesy stuff. It's a show that was definitely for its time, and I don't think it would have worked in any other time. But it was a fun show. I loved it then. I love it now. But I don't know. I think people look at it wrongly because it was acceptable back in this time, and I think people just look at their time and don't understand that. Anyways, I hope y'all have a good week. We will be getting back with you next Friday. Until then, keep it between the ditches and yeehaw!